coming. Today we're going to talk about what steps you can take to get ready for your postgraduate job. And you are the manager of your career. This is a real transformative year for you because you're really moving from being a law student to being an attorney. I'm just going to go ahead and put all this up here. And so your thinking needs to change from being a student to now thinking about, I'm an attorney and what things do I need to do for people to look at me as someone that they want to hire. And so one of the things about it is that with that mental shift, there's a lot of things that you may want to do that we're going to go over, but also it's probably a time too that there's a lot of anxiety about what is the process, what do I need to do. Now I'm going to be out in the difficult job market. So we're going to give you some ideas so that you can be much more strategic about it and do some concrete things at different periods over the next year so that you're working towards what you need to do to be marketable. Okay. So the next slide is really the 20-80 rule. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the 20-80 rule. It sounds like you have. Somebody has. So 20% of jobs are posted, but they're seen by 100% of the people that are out there looking. So obviously you're going to get hundreds of applicants, and it's going to be difficult to get noticed. Now, I personally have had that experience because I was looking for a job from fall of last year sort of through the summer. And it was really true. I mean, the times I did have interviews, I usually did know somebody, but when they were posted, they'd be like, oh, we got 500 resumes, and some of the people didn't even have law degrees. I mean, they get so much junk that you can just somehow get forgotten, get missed, or whatever. But also, you've got a lot of competition. So the place to focus is really the 80% of jobs that aren't posted. This is sort of the hidden job market. Obviously, fewer people are applying. And then how do you make yourself stand out?
And we want you to find the opportunities where you can get noticed and where people click you and say, aha, this is the best candidate for the job. So a lot of the strategies that we're going to talk about today are not specifically job search in the terms of, okay, submit your application at 5:01. I mean, it's not that sort of stuff. It's more of the, how do you make yourself the best candidate and how do you position yourself to hear about opportunities? And so we're going to talk a lot about professional development. And I kind of conceptualize this in 3 key areas. So you'll see in the center triangle, that's you. That's all of you. But surrounding you are these 3 other triangles, and they all kind of touch on each other. They're not really distinct areas, but for the purposes of our conversation today, we'll talk about them in 3 distinct areas. So the first is knowledge. And by knowledge, we mean, do you know what it is that you need to know to do the kind of work you want to do? So what are the issues in your areas of practice? Do you have that expertise that you'll be called upon to use as an attorney? Do you know about the developments in your field, what the hot topics are, what the lawyers are talking about, what's the next thing on the horizon in your area? And are you familiar with the industry trends? Who is doing this sort of work? What's going on in the marketplace? What are their hiring practices? Where are these opportunities, or who are your target employers? And so all of that fits into that knowledge bucket. Next, you'll see in the bottom right corner, it's hard to see, but it says skills. Right? Now, people aren't hiring you only to think like lawyers. They will be hiring you to be lawyers. And so it's important that you develop the skill set and the tools so you can actually do the things your clients need you to do. And so you want to ask yourself, do I have those skills? And one of the reasons why we're doing this workshop now is that you'll have opportunities next semester to develop some skills if you don't yet have them now. But you really want to think about moving beyond the sitting in the classroom simply absorbing knowledge and finding ways of learning how to do the things you need to do and building some competency in those areas. And then the piece on top is the contacts piece. Who do you know? Do you you know people in your field of interest? Do you know who the different organizations are? Are there people you can go to for advice and encouragement and who can steer you in the right direction, or make a phone call on your behalf to make sure your application goes out from the middle of the pile of 500 and gets put on the top? And so do you have that base that you can tap into to help move you along and help you not just with the job, but kind of help you with your own professional development? You know, are there people who know you? So if you need to offer references for a job, which is usually the case, especially for attorney-level positions, are there people who know your work and who know your sense of professionalism and who can really speak on your behalf? If you haven't yet cultivated those relationships, that might be something we're going to think about and talk about doing this year. Okay, so at this stage of the game, in your final year of school, we're really thinking about how do we acquire all of these. These are things you'll be developing and honing throughout your entire career, but we're still in that ramping up stage where you want to make sure you're acquiring the foundation in all three of those areas. So to help you sort of figure that out or break it down into more nitty-gritty or action-oriented items, we developed a career inventory. So we're going to pass this around. And so Jen's going to pass that around. And the idea here is that, you know, most of us go through law school one semester at a time. Let me see what's offered next semester. Have I heard nice things about that professor? I'll take that class. But there isn't necessarily that strategic overview. We need you to have that strategic overview now and to really assess if that's where I want to be a year from now. What do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to fill in the gaps? What have I already done to position myself well to build my knowledge and my skills and my experience? And what's missing so that I can make some smart choices and be very directed and focused with my activity in the coming year. So the form we've given you is a two-sided form. We want you to look at the front that as the big title, Graduating Student Career Inventory and Action Plan. This first page is your inventory. We're actually going to give you a minute to fill it out. So I'm going to just give you some ideas about what we have in mind, and then we're going to stop talking for a moment, give you a couple of minutes to actually take stock. What do I know? What can I do? Who do I know? And maybe identify some of those areas where we want to fill in some gaps. So just to give you a sense of how to use this form. So on the top, you know, you can put your name and your career goal. You're going to keep this form. I'm not collecting it. It can be nice and messy. Messy handwriting. Something you can read. But what are your goals? You know, do you know what kind of work you want to do, or maybe the setting in which you want to do it, or the location? For some of you, you may still not know, and that's fine. You're still here. But maybe your goal then is to figure it out, and that we want to use the balance of this year to figure out that particular goal. On the knowledge column there, you know, jot down some ideas. So I did an example here of someone who wants to be a district attorney. And so in the knowledge, I put things like, well, learned criminal procedure, learned evidence, you know, got a sense of, or these are the things they need to do. Learn about district attorney hiring practices, who hires, when do they hire, you know, that kind of stuff. They need to be familiar with the hot topics, what's going on with sentencing guidelines, or 3 strikes, or capital punishment, or whatever the issues are for that field. You want to write down here, so what is the knowledge you need to accumulate? And then if you've already done it, accumulated at least a baseline, you might check it off or in that developed area. And so that might then give you some idea, okay, I need to focus on the things that don't have those check marks. In the skills area, for a DA, you know, research, writing, courtroom procedures, interviewing witnesses, negotiating with defense lawyers, reading police reports, and you know, this pretend student maybe did some of those activities at internships, but not all of them. And so this student might look at this and say, okay, well, there's some gaps I need to fill if anyone's going to take me seriously as a deputy DA. And for context, you know, again, I know the people in the SFDA's office, or I've spoken with Professor Porter, or you know, I've gotten to know DAs in other counties in Northern California or Southern California. But these would be the contacts this person would need to develop to be well positioned. So we're going to take a time out for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I want you to fill in your grid based on your areas. What do you know in terms of the issues or the knowledge you need to acquire, the skills you need to develop, the people you need to know? Feel free during that time also to come up and grab some pizza, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and then figure out what do we do with this inventory and how do we use this moving forward. Okay, so you just took a few minutes to fill out your inventory. I'm curious, how did that feel? Or did you feel like you knew what to put on there? Or do you have a lot of questions? Or I don't know if anybody's willing to share feedback yet?
I feel like I don't know the skills that I don't know.
Right, so you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the skills that you might need to have. You don't know there's a gap in knowledge there. You might have them. You just don't know what's in there. Any other feedback? Well, it's one of the reasons why we do this and encourage you to do this now. This is a dynamic process. This is going to change over time. You're going to continue to enhance your credentials through work and other kinds of experiences that you're having here, and so you'll be checking some things off. But we still want you to really focus on this discovery and exploration process. And we're going to talk a little bit about getting knowledge, and that's where the contacts really fit in, is maybe to talk to people who are doing the things you want to be doing and asking them, what are the essential skills I need? How do I get from where I am today as a law student to where I want to be as an entry-level attorney? What will I be evaluated on? What are the skills I need? Can you help me evaluate what I have and to identify that? I would say sooner rather than later, I mean, to the extent that you might want to make some choices about next semester based on that knowledge. Any other feedback on that piece? Okay, so we're going to flip over to the action plan side of the form and really figure out, okay, what are some of the steps I can take? And so Jan and I are going to elaborate a little bit more on some of the strategies that you can use to fill in these gaps.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about knowledge. Obviously, you've taken certain courses, but I would urge you to talk to your professor and other people that you know to make sure that you're getting all of the knowledge, substantive knowledge that you need for the career that you're hoping to go into. There might be some things that you aren't aware of, and now is a much better time to do it than later, because if there is maybe a class you probably should have taken and GGU's offers it, great, you can take a spring semester. If you don't, you can find out other universities that do. You can also,
I practiced employment law when I graduated, so I took all of the sort of labor and employment law, employment discrimination, all those courses that were sort of intrinsically interesting to me. And I avoided things like federal income tax, which seemed not my thing. And once I was in practice, I came to realize that was not the smartest choice, that there were issues involving tax and getting, settlements for my clients that had tax implications, and I wasn't necessarily serving them well by not having that base of knowledge. So it wasn't, I didn't know I should have taken administrative law, which I happened to have taken, but there, areas like that that may not occur to you, but having experts tell you these are useful courses would be very helpful.
so another thing you can do, well, I'm going to actually skip to the bottom of it, which is informational interviews, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. But that's going to be a really key way for you to find out what are you missing in all of these areas we're talking about. But for substantive knowledge, it's something that's good to do now because you're in school and you can figure out where you can get that. Another place to look to is joining bar associations now. It's either